Hello friends, I am Dr. Prabhavati Shukla, Professor School of Studies in Psychology, Pandit Ravishankar Shukla University, Raipur. Today my lecture is on staying focused related with attention. We all know that attention shapes the brain. What we pay attention to is what we will build on our brain tissue. Our neurons wire in response to what we focus upon. Sometimes we think we are staying attention, but unfortunately we mistake attention from judgment. We pay attention to something and then we start to judge it, categorize it and criticize it. Judging involves an underlying assumption that our purpose is to categorize and take action. Attention refers to the process of selecting only certain stimulus and concentrating cognitive process on them. We see that focused attention, the brain's ability to concentrate its attention on a targeted stimulus for any period of time. It is a type of attention that makes it possible to quickly detect relevant stimulus. We use focused attention or mental focus to attend to both internal and external stimulus, and it is an important skill that allows us to carefully and efficiently carry out the tasks in our daily lives. The inability to reject relevant information marks a failure in focused attention. Focusing something falls because attention is attracted by a singular or intrinsic events in the environment. Perception without attention would be a swirl of confusion, as the mind tries to comprehend everything, stimulating the sense at once. The discordant perception and thought of schizophrenic appears to be in part related to the breakdown in the normal process of selective attention. Theoretical explanation of attention, it divides theories into two camps. One camp assures that attention operates as a filter that blocks the processing in some stimulus and allows the processing of others. This camp addresses at what point in the processing of information selection takes place. The other camp assumes that the person actively chooses stimulus for further processing by allocating a portion of one or more limited pools of attentional capacity. This camp addresses how the concentration of cognitive process on particular stimulus takes place. In recent years, there has been many researches that have begun to incorporate information about the inner working of the brain that are used in the process of attention. These studies have yielded the introduction of the clinical model of attention. Type of attention are usually separated on the basis of which type of attention model they follow. Two main categories of attention models are there. One is the cognitive and the second is the clinical. And these are separated mainly on the type of researches that have been done. Cognitive model, it takes into consideration passive and active attention and top and down versus bottom up attention, whereas it emphasizes on control, monitoring and decision making. Now, passive attention, it refers to the involuntary process that occurs in the brain when we pay attention to an outside stimulus that stands out from its environment. Passive attention is said to be effortless. It is also known as covert or endogenous attention and occurs when attention is oriented according to observer's goals and desires. Active attention, it is the voluntary process. Your brain that engages in when you pick out a stimulus in the environment to focus on. It takes effort on the part of your brain and is a multi-dimensional process that allows to perform several important types of attention tasks. This attention is also called overt or extraneous attention and is considered to be reflex and automatic and is caused by sudden change in the periphery. The top-down versus bottom-up attention. Top-down attention is based on top-down information processing. This type of attention processing is based on contextual information. In this, our attention starts with context stimulus in our cognition. That is, it starts in the brain and is also known as goal-driven and is under the control of person who is attending. Bottom-up attention is based on sensory input and is said to be data-driven. Attention is guided by our internal thoughts and cognition. It is guided by the input our brain receives. This attention starts with the environment. Visual and auditory attention. In visual attention, it is the process of attending to what we see. And auditory attention, it is the process of attending to what we hear. Skolberg and Metter hierarchical clinical model of attention in which attention has been hierarchically placed. Focused attention, ability to focus on stimulus. It is a basic type of attention in which everyone can be engaged. Only those with severe brain injury or developmental impairment do not possess this ability. The second is the sustained ability. Ability to actively focus and maintain consistent behavioral response on a specific stimulus over a long period of time and is referred as vigilance at higher level. Sustained attention is imperative to tasks involving in situational awareness. The third is the selective attention. Ability to focus on a specific stimulus, that is attending to one and ignoring the other. The fourth is the alternative attention. It refers to capacity for mental flexibility and allows individual to shift their focus of attention and move between tasks having different cognitive requirement and thus controlling which information will be selectively attended. And the last is the divided attention. It refers to our ability to maintain focus on more than one stimulus at a time. That is, ability to respond simultaneously to multiple demands. Attention impairment. In attention impairment, there are many impairments that span all the type of attention specified in clinical model. Attention impairment are most commonly found with the presence of either a neurological condition such as Alzheimer's disease or acquired brain injury or a developmental disorder such as attention deficit hyperactive disorder as an autism. Our ability to keep attention on a stimulus can vary depending on different factors. One is the personal factor, in which level of activation, motivation, emotions or sensory modality that processes the stimulus. Beside this, our mood set and our attitude also contributes. Second is the environmental factor. If few environmental distractions are there, then it is easier to pay attention to a stimulus or target activity, whereas it becomes more difficult to concentrate with more frequent or intense distraction. The next is the stimulus factor, in which novelty, complexity, duration of the stimulus, size of the stimulus are some of the characteristics of stimulus that contributes to attention. If there is only one single simple obvious stimulus, it will be easier to detect it. People who have short attention span may have trouble focusing on tasks for any length of time without being easily distracted. This short attention span can have several negative effects, that is poor performance, inability to complete daily tasks, important information can be missed, it can cause numerous psychological and physical conditions. According to new researches, attention span are not shrinking, rather they are evolving to be more selective. In 2015, Microsoft released a study claiming that the average human attention span has dropped to 8 seconds down from 2012 in the year 2000, making us apparently more distracted than goldfish. These findings came out at the time when psychologists, concerned parents and Bruner pundits had just gotten over the novelty of having internet or phones and were trying to see how it was destroying our brain. But a new study suggested that before the intervention of mobile, humans were a cognitively distracted species that can only focus on one thing in a quarter of a second blocks. This inability to focus is an evolutionary adaptation, being able to flicker between high focused and diffused attention, which gives us the ability to concentrate on a complex task while also being aware of our surrounding, making us the dynamic, hyper alert creatures and that we are today. Brickley studied brain of human and found we concentrate in 250 millisecond blocks. The brain is like a theater with a spotlight and house light, and it cycles between spotlight mode to the house light mode. The constant transition from spotlight to house light creates a pulsating strobe-like effect. Attention is fluid and we want to be fluid. You don't want to be overlooked on anything. It was seen that how variation nature of this stimulus affects the span of attention on various levels of intellectual functioning. And it was seen that increment in level of abstraction, the attention span tends to decrease in all level of intellectual functioning, ranging from moderately retarded intellectual functioning to average intellectual functioning. The attention span of the moderately retarded intellectual functioning is not affected much by the nature of the stimulus category because of better rote memory, which is unaffected by distraction. Now, what are the causes of short attention span? One is the ADHD, that is the attention deficit hyperactive disorder. It is a common disorder usually diagnosed in childhood and continues to adulthood. People with ADHD often have difficulty in paying attention and controlling their impulses. Symptoms of ADHD includes period of hyper-focus time management problem, restlessness, anxiety, disorganized and forgetfulness. It is possible that staying focused requires a certain degree of anxiety and worry. Too little might cause attention to wane, whereas too much might have even distraction overwhelmed experiencing. Depression and autism. In depression is a mood disorder and can severely affect one's life, whereas autism it is a group of neurodevelopment disorder that causes social, behavioral and communication challenges. It includes trouble relating to others, difficulty in expressing needs or feelings. CAT focused on attention filter of the human brain, due to which we can focus or we can't focus on a particular activity. He has a thought that autism, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety and sleep disorder might all stem from the same root problem, that is the attentional searchlight. It is a disruption in the part of the brain for which researchers are building a lifelike computer model of a human brain, which they will use it as a cognitive test to assess the brain activity of living people. All kind of informations that reaches our brain, whether it is a thought, motive, sensation, from the internal state of the body, has to pass through a structure called the thalamus Information that will reach the thalamus would either be rooted into the cortex, with which you make conscious about the information, or it will be filtered out or kept in our subconscious, deciding where to be sent, either to conscious or to subconscious. The thalamic reticular nucleus act as a filter, determining which information can go through conscious and which information does not reaches that level. So it is the attention searchlight of the brain that sort out what we need to pay attention and what we don't. Next is the learning disability. Learning disabilities are neurodevelopmental disorder that interferes with basic learning skill such as reading and calculating. Some of the learning disabilities are dyslexia, and dysgraphia. In this, the individual has poor memory span, difficulty in eye coordination, and are being easily distracted. Next is the concentration problem. In MES has indicated that tiredness and emotional stress can cause concentration in most of the people. Concentration problem, when present to an excess degree, are also characteristics of certain physical and psychological condition. Attention fatigue has also been considered as one of the factors for short-term span attention. It is a neurological psychological phenomenon that results from overuse of the brain, inhibitory attention mechanism which handles incoming distraction while maintaining focus on specific tasks of inhibited all potential distraction and not by strengthening that central mental activity. It has directed that attention fatigue occurs when a particular part of brain, global inhibitory system is overloaded due to suppression of increasing number of stimulus or information. And next is the stressful event, relationship problem, physical illness of the parent, childhood trauma, emotional problem, family isolation. They are some of the stressful events that leads attention problem in the individual. Some of the environmental situations, that is educational challenges, that is literacy of the parent, discord with peers, teachers, economic challenges, that is poverty, inadequate financial status, and occupation challenges, that is unemployment, loss of job, adverse effect of work environment can lead to attention and concentration problem among the youth. We center our attention on certain important elements of our environment, while other things blend into the background in order to sustain our attention on one event in everyday life. We must filter out other events. We must be selective in our attention by focusing on some events to the detriments of the other. This is because attention is a resource that needs to be distributed to those events that are important. Two major models that describe how visual selective attention operates. That is, it operates at two stages. At first stage, attention is distributed uniformly over time. External visual scenes and processing of information is programmed parallel. In the second stage, attention is concentrated to a specific area of the visual scene. That is, it is focused and processing is performed in serial fashion. First model is the spotlight model. Psychologists suggest that this spotlight includes a focal point in which things are viewed clearly. The area surround this focal point, known as the fringe, is still visible but not clearly seen. The area outside of the fringe of the spotlight, it is known as the margin. The second is the zoom lens model. This model suggests that we are able to increase or decrease the size of our focus. A large focus area results in slower processing since it includes more information, so the limited attentional resources must be distributed over a large area. This model inherits all properties of the spotlight model, that is focus, fringe and margin, but it has the added properties of changing in size. Some researchers have linked working memory capacity with filtering. More efficient filtering results in more resources available for processing necessary information. Several hybrid theories also exist suggesting that the efficiency with which existing resources are used contribute to working memory capacity. Multitasking while studying may impair overall memory to pay attention. A study on divided attention indicated that students who were forced to divide attention between word list and digits recalled fewer words compared to students of other group. It seems that students really pay attention to the values of the words. That is, their odds of recalling a 10-point word were almost 5 times greater than the odds of recalling 1-point word. The link between value and recall was for all students regardlessly whether they studied with or without distraction. The reason is that students adjust their studying to compensate for the study. Condition paying particular attention to the most important study items. Researchers has also emphasized on the emotional aspect and attention and examined how exposure to parental criticism impacts the way that the children process and pay attention to facial expression of emotion. And this was seen through a neural maker called the hate positive potential. It provided a measure of how much one is paying attention to emotional information. In this, brain activity of the child were also seen as they viewed series of pictures of faces showing different emotions. It was seen that children of highly critical parents displayed less attention to all the emotional facial expression. This is because people have a tendency to avoid things that make them uncomfortable, anxious and sad, because such feelings are aversive and might associate with parental criticism. How visual attention selects important information. Studies on visual attention discovered an interesting inconsistency in spatial properties. It was found that when person look at his friends in a crowd, his visual attention do not concentrate only on the friend, but it also focuses on the people surrounding around the friends more visibly. But other researchers claim that attention tend to focus on the friend's face, ignoring every other else. Shincon stated that this discrepancy can be attributed to the different stages of attentional process. Their brain waves measurement revealed that a wide area around the attention focus facilitates attention at early visual processing, and that information at the attended location is extracted selectively at later processing. Information adjacent to the attention focus seems to be facilitated and suppressed simultaneously. So the inconsistency that has been shown can be explained by considering the effect of different attentional process. Human brain allocates attention based on known size of an object. People pay attention to objects based on their real world size rather than how they are perceived by the eyes. Our brain uses object size to determine how much attention to allocate to a particular object. The way our eyes perceive an object can be different from its actual size. In this condition, our brain adjusts attention based on our previous knowledge of an object size, not how our eye sees it. Attention allocation can be trained, which could lead to improvement and efficiency in performing the task. Now the question is whether the human brain differently allocates attention. Now this depends on object size and measurement. Measurement can be done on the basis of how long it took to identify probe target that were embedded within the object image. Researchers found that response were quicker across known smaller real world sized object as compared to large one, though the space occupied by both the object on the eye was the same. But if the size of the object is identical on your eye, and if you are aware that one of them is smaller, you allocate more attention to the smaller item. The reason is that your knowledge of the object size overrides its physical size, thereby adjusting how much attention your brain allocates to the object. Your own personal rating determines how efficiently you are going to be attending to that object. Information processing in the brain reveals that when focused, we process information continuously rather than in waves. But when we are trying to ignore something, we perceive and experience information in waves. Kelly says that we are better at prioritizing certain time when we are not attending to that space in the world. Research shows that attending to space and time interact with one another. Our brain oscillates at many different frequencies, and each frequency has a different role. Vigilance decrement is the result of the drop in one's attentional resources. Many researchers on vigilance decrement treated attention as a limited resources that would get used up over time, which has been believed to be wrong. We start performing poorly on a task because we have stopped paying attention to it. Libras explored the limits of visual perception, focusing on phenomena called trochlear funding. It means that when continual attention to a stationary object in one's peripheral vision can lead to object's complete disappearance. And it has also been suggested that prolonged attention to a single task actually hinders performance. Reactivating and deactivating our goals helps us to stay focused. When faced with long tasks, it is best to impose brief break on yourself. Brief mental break will actually help you to stay focused on your tasks. Now, how to improve your mental focus? One is staying focused on a particular task can be challenging. When you are surrounded by constant distractions, there are some ways which would help you to improve your mental focus on the task. First is assess your mental focus. That is, you have to assess or analyze that how strong your mental focus is at the present movement. If your focus needs to work, then following steps can be followed. First is eliminate distraction. Not all distraction comes from outside sources. Exhaustion, worry, anxiety, poor motivation, and other internal disturbance can particularly difficult to avoid. Few strategies you might try to minimize or eliminate such internal distraction. Make sure that you are well rested prior to the test. You might try to minimize or eliminate such internal distraction. Make sure you are well rested prior to the task and to use positive thoughts and imaginary to fight off anxiety and worry. Focus on one thing at a time. Involved in multitasking at one can dramatically cut down your productivity and efficiency. Your attention should be like spotlight. If you shine that spotlight on one particular area, you can see things very clearly. And if you try to spread same amount of light across a large dark room, you might indeed only glimpse and shadowing outline. Next is the practice mindfulness. Findings had indicated that persons who receive mindful meditation training and also those who practice mindful and deep breathing exercise regularly showed improvement in concentration and focus. And shift your attention to making habit of taking short breath after a long mental work. It will dramatically improve your mental focus. I thank you for watching this video.